But it turns out, contrary to popular belief, that I am still alive. If you are new to the channel, my name is Mark, this is Toast Dragon Fantasy, and in today's video I will be counting down the top 5, least 5, worst reads of 2017. There weren't any terrible books read, there were some terrible books read this year. If you have followed my channel for any period of time, you will likely know that I do rate my books in my own special way, with my own special system, and that is what I am using to determine scientifically what my 5 least favourite reads of the year are, and conversely, my 5 favourite reads of the year 2017, which will come up when I can be bothered to film it. So without any further ado, I shall now reveal my 5 least favourite reads of 2017. My 5th least favourite read of 2017 was quite upsetting because at the time I had extremely high hopes for this book. It was the first book by this particular author that I tried, and I'd only heard good things about it, and subsequently I have read other things by him and they've been incredible, which makes this even more painful, and that is Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. It basically follows the story of Jorg, who is kind of an outlaw, but he's a self-imposed outlaw in the fact that he was royalty, but he ran away pretty much. And he's been living on the run, well not on the run, but he's been living in exile basically. He's been living a very free life, I suppose, with a band of, you know, miscreants, shall we say. And unfortunately, the characters in this book are just wholly dislikable, including Jorg. You know, he is just, there's no redeeming feature to him from this book alone, as far as I'm concerned. There were some, you know, faint threads of potential redemption later on in the road, but it was just depressing. Like, from page 1 pretty much throughout, it was just a depressing read. And I am a fan of grimdark fantasy, and this can easily be considered grimdark fantasy, but I would consider grimdark to have grey characters. And I don't think any character in this book is grey, I just think they're dark, they're horrible. And the plot wasn't particularly engaging, wasn't, in my opinion, particularly original. There were hints of magic systems from Jorg, which again may have potential later on in the series, but I haven't ventured any further with it. I've left the world of Broken Empire. I think it's the Broken Empire. But I've left this world behind and I have no plans on returning to it. So, Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence is my 5th least favourite read 2017. You move. I'll put you there, kinda see it. That'll do. 4th on this list, my 4th least favourite read of 2017. All this double negative stuff is getting confusing. Is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I read this towards the start of the year when it was just everywhere. Like, the series was everywhere. I kind of started watching and I kind of became familiar with BookTube right about the time when A Court of Mist and Fury was just relentless in its, you know, dominance of the BookTube world, and it was just absolutely everywhere and thrown in your face, and naturally I was very curious to see what the hype was about. So I declined to purchase it as a hard copy. I got it on Audible, listened to the audiobook, and was completely bored by it. Nothing really happened, as far as I'm aware, until maybe the last half an hour, when things started to get more interesting and a little bit darker and a little bit more, you know, eventful. But up until that, the plot was just so meandering. The characters weren't particularly likeable. There's a lot of issues with a lot of Sarah J. Maas writing anyway, and certain things that happen in the story that I don't agree with, and there's certain things that happen in the story that people try to defend, actions by certain characters who later go on to become firm fan favourites, actions within this book which I tried to defend. You know, people try to defend them, and I don't understand quite why. If I'm taking this book as a book on its own merits, it did absolutely nothing for me. The only reason I read the second one was because it ended fairly well. And that is about all I have to say on this book. So, Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas is my 4th least favourite read of 2017. My 3rd least favourite read of 2017, getting tiring saying that, is The Poison Eater by Shanna Germain. I read this a while ago. I think it was back in March or February. This was one of the early reads of the year, and it left no impression on me whatsoever. It tells the story of a woman named Talia, who has, I think, been genetically altered, but she also has been hired as what is known as the Poison Eater for this kingdom. And the Poison Eater, I believe, has to survive a number of trials, but with each successful completion of a trial, they get access to a vision of the future, I believe, or something to do with another character. So they are in essence a very important member of, you know, the King's Court, because they can help reveal potential threats and potential enemies. So actually the premise sounded great, which is why I read it. It's the first angry robot book I've ever read. I've not really come across them very much. It just didn't deliver. The drama involved was non-existent. The tension created was pretty much gone within a couple of pages. All kind of issues were resolved far too quickly. None of the characters were memorable. You know, I had to look on the back of this book to remember the name of the main character, which says a lot. Nothing really to get excited about in this book. I wouldn't necessarily say it was badly written. It just didn't do anything for me, and I was very bored by it, which is never good when you're trying to read a book. So it wasn't interesting to me, and I've not checked anything else out by the writer. So this is my third least favourite read of 2017. My second least favourite read of the year was actually one that I've been prolific with book reviews this year. I have made 2. Unfortunately, this was actually one of the 2 that I've reviewed in full on the channel. My second least favourite read of the year is CrossReza Canopy by Thorns. This is set in a world where there are 10, I think, sort of areas which are the ruling areas of this kingdom called Canopy, which is basically as you would expect any kind of rainforest to be. There are multi-layers to this canopy. The 10 areas are all ruled by a benevolent god or goddess, and each benevolent god or goddess has a bodyguard who is the opposite gender. Our main character, Una, escapes from a life potentially of slavery to find herself in the service of one of these goddesses called Outblane, who is going to die soon, and so she's hoping and she's fully expecting that the reincarnation of Outblane will be male, so that she, Una, can become his bodyguard. It was an intriguing concept which drew me to it. You know, I've never heard of a book set in a similar kind of world to this, which is what drew me in. But I would have to say that Una is probably the least likeable protagonist that I've ever come across. Even more so than dear old Jorg from Mark Lawrence's book. She's just very whiny. She's very petty. She's very selfish. Any kind of selfless act that she does is always not really actually that selfless. She's got ulterior motives to it. The plot was slow. There were a lot of themes in it that just didn't rub me the right way. You know, it was just a bit of a train wreck, if I'm being completely honest, which is bad to say about any author, but I have absolutely no interest in reading the sequels which are due to come out. There's not really a lot else to be said. It was just not very good, unfortunately. And it was one of my more hyped books for the year, actually, so it was kind of doubly disappointing. So yeah, this is my second least favourite book of 2017. And my least favourite book of 2017 is one that actually has done quite well, and it does have a very strong following, but it did absolutely nothing for me, and that is Poison Study by Maria V. Schneider. Unfortunately, this was another book that I read a while ago, and as such, there isn't actually a lot that I can say that is either really negative or really positive about it. But at the time, the ratings that I gave it, I obviously gave for a reason. Plot seemed to be the biggest issue, that it was just non-existent pretty much. It effectively involves a character called Yelena, who, to get out of being killed, get out of being, you know, executed, she takes up a role as the king's poison or food taster, someone who will test for poisons. And obviously this involves your standard training montages with the sort of expert, if you like, involving different poisons and how to find them and how to, you know what they taste like and stuff like that, and how to counteract them, all those kind of things. And I believe by the end she has some kind of power, some kind of magic power, which obviously left a very lasting impression on me, because I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. There is, of course, as with most sort of young adult fantasy, your standard romances. I don't think there is a triangle involved in this, which if there had been, it probably would have lowered the rating even more. What else can I say? Well, it was just boring. Unfortunately, and I haven't had any inclination to read any more. I haven't had any inclination to read it again, just to see if I was wrong first time around. So it's this book that has the unenviable position of being my least favourite read of 2017. Very, very sorry if you're a fan. There we have it, 5 books that I didn't particularly have a lot of time for. Let me know down in the comments the books that didn't do much for you. Were there any books that you were expecting big things of this year that just didn't deliver? Yeah, I would be very curious to know, so that perhaps I can steer clear of them in the future. Or maybe I can check them out to see whether you were in fact wrong. If you liked this video, please do not hesitate to give it a thumbs up, because that will tell me how well it has done. If you are new to the channel, if you've only just discovered me today, check out some of my other videos, and if they entertain you as well, subscribe to the channel and you'll be notified when more booktube, authortube and skit type content come your way. That is all I have time for you today. So with that being said, my name is Mark, this is Toast Dragon Fantasy, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Goodbye.